Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Ritter of Channel 7, Eyewitness News, WABC TV, and this is another edition of The Countdown, election edition for the 2020 race for the White House. Tonight, Democratic presidential candidates prepare to face off in yet another debate, and for the first time, well, there's a new guy on the stage. Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, he will be on the stage. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more, live from Washington, D.C., Jennifer Jones Austin. She's CEO of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies. She's also worked for former Mayor Bloomberg and also worked for Mayor de Blasio. Political consultant Hank Scheinkoff joins me here in the studio in New York, and political reporter Dave Evans is live in Las Vegas. All of you, thank you for being here. I want to just do a few bits of business before we get started. Las Vegas is where the debate will be held tonight at the Paris Theater. The field now narrowed. Bloomberg will join former Vice President Biden, Senator Sanders and Warren and Amy Klobuchar, and former Mayor of Indianapolis, Indiana, Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Indiana is a state, note to self. Bloomberg qualified after this NPR Marist poll was released Tuesday, with Sanders leading by 31% and Bloomberg coming in second with 19%. Biden came in third with 15%. Now, there's another poll out today by ABC News and the Washington Post, still puts Sanders in the lead with 32% and Biden in second with 17%. Bloomberg has 14%. Regardless of where he falls, Mayor Bloomberg now the target for the other candidates. So how's he going to respond? What about stop and frisk when he was mayor? And he apologized for that already, but he's going to get it tonight too. And what about his comments in the past about women? Misogynist and sexist is what many people say. We're going to debate and talk about all this. But first, I want to show a new ad that came out today. I'll give you a little visual cues. And I think David Evans and Jennifer will not be able to see it, but you can hear it. First, these are the candidates using the words of their opponents, Bloomberg and Biden, each were using the other's words in their campaign ads. They came out today. We'll start first with Mr. Bloomberg.
The best way to predict the future is to create it. I don't know anybody I've worked with in my career, and I've been hanging around a long time, who does more to create the future than you, Mike. Mike Bloomberg transformed the city of New York into a global leader on public health and environmental stewardship.
And now, Joe Biden.
Passed a health care bill that does absolutely nothing to fix the big health care problems in this country. It is just a disgrace.
Interesting. Both men using their opponents' voices to make their point. One more thing, I want a bit of sound I want to get out. We have lots of sound to play for you now, but I want to do this before we start our discussion with our panel. This is both Sanders and Buttigieg talking about Mike Bloomberg and the criticism that he's trying to buy this nomination.
Now, Mr. Bloomberg, like anybody else, has a right to run for president. He does not have a right to buy the presidency.
No, he's definitely trying to buy the race, but here's the thing. It's not that simple. You have to actually be willing to look voters in the eye, to take questions. At some point, you've got to be ready to be challenged.
So, for our very smart and very wise panel, we're going to start with political reporter Dave Evans, who's in Las Vegas right now. Dave, sense of what the mood is there, and what does Mr. Bloomberg have to do there tonight?
Well, I think the big concern with Democrats here in Las Vegas is that tonight's debate is going to become all about Mike Bloomberg and his money and his past record, both as a businessman running Bloomberg LP and then as mayor for 3 terms. So I think that's kind of the concern, that everyone else is going to get squeezed out of this discussion simply because this is the first time that we're seeing Mike Bloomberg on the stage. You know, there's some other important things besides Mike Bloomberg. You know, Joe Biden is trying to save his campaign. Elizabeth Warren is trying to save her campaign. Pete Buttigieg, for example, is trying to show that it's not just white, well-to-do voters that is his constituency. So there are a lot of goals that these other candidates have, but I'm afraid that the focus, or at least the first 30 or 40 minutes, is going to be all about Mike Bloomberg.
Hank, how vicious could this get tonight?
Mike Bloomberg has the most on the line this evening. Look, the party is shifting to the left. He's trying to hold on to a senator that may be disappearing. If there's any way to save the campaign for him, it's tonight. Why? because the rest of the left is going to gang up on him to try to move him out of the center, move him to the right, and get rid of him.
Jennifer, Mr. Bloomberg, claims he's got problems trying to get some of the Vice President Biden audience, which Biden says he's got a huge African American support system there. What does Mr. Bloomberg have to do tonight? You know him pretty well. You came out just a little while ago at an event he was at down south and played a role in that event as well.
Well, if the focus is on him, then that would be a very good thing for him if he's able to take the time and tell his story. He is a lot more than what the news media and what other outlets report about, some of the challenges that he's had, some of which he created on his own. But if the focus is on him, then he can actually tell the whole story, tell the whole record about what he did do as mayor in New York City, what he thinks about the issues concerning our country today, especially as they concern the populations that people are presenting, the ones that he's most challenged with. He can talk about his plan for America, his plan for Black America, and how it really would help to move the needle on economic inequality and create more opportunity. So it'd be a good thing if the focus is on him.
How's he going to react? He has a temper. He's been known to show it, as we know, all of us who've lived here during his tenure for 12 years as mayor. He's been known to show it. He's learned to debate. I'm going to show a clip in a few minutes about some of the debates he's had. We've had 3 debates here with Mayor Bloomberg and for his 3 terms, and he got better at those debates. But he's a business guy, and he talks sort of without, I would say, the political, bed manners of, let's say, a Bill Clinton or a Barack Obama. And he tends to be much more factual based and very straightforward, credits by the window, debits by the door business guy.
Well, that's part of his challenge, I believe. And when you appreciate that he is first and foremost a businessman and he is a leader, he doesn't talk in politics language. He doesn't do politics speak or politicians speak. And so that's why it's imperative for people who want to make informed decisions to lean in, to listen to what he's done, what he talks about doing, what he will do. One of the things that people often say about him is if he says he's going to do something, he's going to work to get it done. And that's what many people who have followed him and have worked with him, myself included, believe that he will do. And that's why other people think we need to allow him this opportunity to be heard. So I hope that's what happens on this stage tonight.
As long as I have you there, we'll kick off this next part of the discussion about stop and frisk. And you were a critic. You were not a big fan of that. How big a hill will this be for him to sort of win the African American vote based on his history with stop and frisk? He has apologized profusely about that, but he did lead the way for a good 10 years while it was really peaking.
Stop and frisk is a very, very difficult issue. Anybody who understands the impact of it, the harms that present, knows that it's a very big issue. I believe that Mike Bloomberg understands it. It may have taken him a little bit of a while to get there, but I think he understands it. And when I look at the plan that he has put out to reform criminal justice, when I look at the plan that he's put out to, support, improving, getting rid of, bringing a reduction in the racial wealth gap, creating opportunity for Black Americans. When I look at his emphasis that he's placing on how do we address the trauma that has resulted from years and years societal bias, systemic bias and racism, not just of his own doing, but as he talks about America's problem and his understanding of how stop and frisk played a role with that. When I look at him understanding it and appreciating that we now must do more, it causes me to lean in and say, you know what? This is somebody who did work to reduce juvenile justice detention and placement in New York City, who reduced incarceration by 40%, who invested in foster care and prevention to make sure that Black and brown families were not broken apart, who actually invested in school initiatives to reduce the achievement gap, who invested in schools, alternative public schools for Black boys, appreciating that sometimes they learn best when they are supported by Black leaders and other educators. When I look at that, I say if he's able to tell that story and help people appreciate that he has leaned in and continues to lean in. When I look at the work done at Harvard University to support city mayors in urban cities, many of them Black, to equip them with the skills to do better in their communities. I say we have to lean in and understand the full record. My daddy used to tell me, a social justice leader, civil rights leader, that you have to be informed when you go to the voting booth and you cast your vote. So we, as Black people, I'm a proud Black person, we have to lean in and listen to the whole record. And I think when we do, we can continue to push on stop and frisk and ask that the work be done to address those harms, but we can see that some good can come of this.
Hank, is there redemption there?
It's not a question of redemption. Mike Bloomberg has got to get away from the ideology into the record. That's the point, and it's a very important point. The record of accomplishment is extraordinary. New York City, yeah, that's great, but he is the best voice in American history probably on public health issues. Nobody's done more to stop tobacco use, to get young people, particularly minority people, off soft drinks,
gun control,
you name
change.
it. He did it himself. No one had to say, Bloomberg, go do this. But what's going to happen to the others is they've got to move him away from that and get him to be this oligarch, which is going to be, their main task. Move him out of the center of the party, make him something besides a Democrat, because if you look at the numbers, when you put Sanders' numbers together with Warren, just as a starter, you come up with a very different picture of that party. It'd be a shame if they don't let him, if this doesn't go on, so these kinds of issues can be aired.
David, from your perch, you covered him for many years, all his tenure. How big a hill is this? Jennifer laid out a pretty good argument why she looks past that and she can see the good things he did for the city and for African Americans and other minorities in the city. What's your take on that and what his challenges?
I think the troubling thing for those reporters, those of us who covered Mike Bloomberg running for president and running, for mayor for 3 terms, Mike Bloomberg is not a racist. All of us who covered him know that he did incredible things like the Black Man's Initiative. He was at the forefront of a lot of those things. I think he has to do a lot of explaining. I think he needs a lot more work to do on explaining his policy of stop and frisk and his apology. But the troubling thing for us is all anyone wanted to talk about today when we went down to the Strip and talked to voters, and these were some very engaging voters, and they wanted to talk about 2 things, stop and frisk and about whether this guy is buying this election. And the troubling thing about it is Mike Bloomberg has 12 years at City Hall where he really made a difference. We don't smoke in bars and restaurants in New York City because of Mike Bloomberg. Our schools have improved significantly. He began that change in our schools. He did incredible things as mayor, and I think that record that he has, which is a great record in New York City, has gotten lost in these 2 issues. Is he trying to buy the election and stop and frisk? And that's kind of troubling to us.
Jennifer, I went back and looked at a New York Times editorial as Bloomberg was ending his 3rd term, that controversial 3rd term where he did get his way, and his critics would say he helped buy a 3rd term by getting rid of term limits for that one election. And the Times was quite, they were against stop and frisk, but they really did list all the great things he did for this city. And as Dave just mentioned, the health thing is one, but gun control was big. He built the city, came back from the recession that was after 9/11. There are a lot of people who say he didn't have the kind of, as I said, the bedside political manners of some of the other politicians, but that he was this tough businessman. Is that the kind of personality that that's going to be here, that going to kind of rally a passionate fan base? And that's what they are, fans, like Bernie Sanders does, like Donald Trump does, like Barack Obama did.
Well, I think we have to look at what the country needs right now, and we need somebody who knows how to lead, who knows how to manage, who knows how to deal with big problems. I mean, he came into office, on the heels of 9/11. The city was in distress, right? The nation was in distress. But he pulled New York City together. What we need is somebody who knows how to unite, to unify people when there are problems and there are issues. And I think that if people just pause for a minute and look at him and look at his record, they'll say, you know what, this is somebody we need to pay closer attention to, and perhaps they'll think that we need to get on board.
Do you think? Do you think that all the stuff that came out this last weekend about women and the statements about women, I know you must have cringed when you saw that stuff. A lot of it's been reported before, but not in this scope in one place that the Washington Post did.
Here's what I believe on that. I mentioned a second ago, I'm a black woman. I am a woman. My friends will tell you I ride for women. And I believe that women need to be heard when they believe that an injustice has been committed upon them. What I will tell you is that That never happened to me with Mike Bloomberg. And I never witnessed it when I was in City Hall. I just saw him at every turn lifting up women, giving them opportunity, empowering them. I mean, I remember my first meeting with him where he challenged me in a way that helped me to grow and be stronger, to be more confident, and think that I could do. And that's what I've seen at every turn. And so I'm not going to dismiss people's beliefs about, what happened to them, but I do know that those matters have been adjudicated. And he's still standing. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but I can tell you what I experienced and others around me experienced.
Fair point.
And at every turn, I saw somebody supporting women. He's got a record of supporting women, infant maternal health care, reproductive rights, right? Empowering women, the minority women in business, opportunities that grew under him when he was mayor of New York City. That's what I know.
It's the Bernie Sanders left-wing con job, which is just because he's spending his money means he's trying to buy the election. It's idiotic. The graveyard of American politics is filled with people who thought they could buy elections. The guy has substance and he's got something to say. They're going to try to take that deliverer of the American dream, a guy who started with nothing in Medford, Massachusetts, and became one of the great philanthropists and fighters for public health of our time, and an extraordinary mayor, and turn him into something else. That's the political challenge that they face and that he's got to defend against.
And yet, and he doesn't need to draw crowds or have the passion that Bernie Sanders crowds has, you don't think?
Bernie Sanders is drawing crowds on economic issues that are much more complicated, but need to be said. Mike Bloomberg's got a plan. Question is, are people prepared to listen to the plan, or do they want to hear the rhetoric?
All right, let me talk a little bit about politics, and I want to, Dave, I want to bring you in and get your feedback on this, because you were a reporter on those three debates that WABC had during his three tenures. I want to play, in the last debate he had with Comptroller Bill Thompson, I asked both of them to give a grade to how the other has done in the last 4 years. And you remember this, David, what Bill Thompson's answer was. I want you to listen to Bill Thompson's answer and then listen to how Mike Bloomberg responded. And he had definitely gotten better as a debater because he took the high road in his response. You've each worked closely with each other over the last 8 years. You're in the city, elected at the same time. Could you give each other a grade on your performances? Mr. Thompson, I'll start with you. How would you grade Mr. Bloomberg as mayor?
I think I'll be kind and give the mayor a D-.
Oh my God. Mr. Bloomberg, you want to respond to that, or you want to give Mr. Thompson a grade first?
I think Bill has actually been a reasonably good controller. We've worked well together on most issues. I don't agree with him on everything, but I had said, and I said at a Tufts graduation, I think he's on the board of Tufts, and I was giving a speech, I said he was the best controller he's ever had. He certainly was the best controller that I've ever had to work with, and it has been a pleasure working with him. I don't think that he's the right guy to run this city. I think that I am.
Dave, you remember that moment quite well. I know I did. We were all sort of aghast when Bill Thompson said that. But Bloomberg rose. When someone went low, he went high.
Yeah, it was a gracious response that he gave. I mean, to say that Mike Bloomberg deserved a D- for his tenure is ridiculous. And again, I think Mike Bloomberg is being gracious. I wanted to get back to just a second what we talked about earlier, though, and I'm not discounting any of these allegations that these women have made in these lawsuits against Bloomberg's company and about some of the things that were said. But, reporters who are covering this race, they kind of have to look at this and almost chuckle, not about these allegations, but about compared to Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at the allegations against him. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's you can't compare the two. So I don't know how much that issue is going to really stick. But back to how Bloomberg has changed during the debates. We've seen him get a much better debater, and I want to get more on the campaign trail to get to follow him, because I've noticed, and I've seen him in Virginia and North Carolina, and I've watched those debates online, and not debates, but his stump speech. His stump speech has gotten so much better, so much more lively than when he was mayor. Quick, short, pithy comments. He's a lot better candidate now than he was certainly when he first ran in 2001.
Yeah, Jennifer, you've seen that too, I imagine. And you've also seen how he is not afraid to take on Donald Trump and get right down in the dirty, nasty mud of Twitter with him.
No, he's not. But when you have a record of accomplishment and achievement, and you're confident in that record because you know that you've done some good, then you're less apt to take the bait and engage. except for as it concerns Donald Trump, because you've got to, because that's the only way that you can play the game with him, because he doesn't really play on the merits. Trump doesn't play on the merits. He tries to get under your skin, so the best thing to do is to get back at him. And I think that we're seeing that for people who want to challenge his record, Mike Bloomberg can speak to his accomplishments and his achievements. And when you've got Trump and he wants to play the nasty game, Bloomberg knows how to play that game too.
Hank, is the I hate the 1% movement going to hurt Mr. Bloomberg in this campaign?
You have a distinctive economic divide in this country that's growing. Bernie Sanders speaks to the worst of it. Mike Bloomberg is trying to speak to the best of it. He's trying to say, look, I made it. I want to make sure everybody else has the opportunity. Bernie Sanders is saying, screw them. Different.
If I can just quickly add there,
of course.
Everybody's talking about the money and how he's trying to buy the election. Have we ever thought, this is a man that did not desire to be president. He doesn't have to spend his money. He could go be sitting somewhere on a beach for all we know,
He's not
right?
like that, though.
But he is leaning in because he sees that this country has a very real problem. He's leaning in and he's putting his resources behind it. In some ways, it's refreshing that we don't have yet another person asking us for money, but is willing to spend of their own because he cares so deeply, feels so sincerely about the problems, and he's stepping up to do something about it. Maybe we need to look at it in that frame.
Okay, final predictions for what's going to happen tonight, Hank?
Bloomberg does well and survives. Thank you, and goes on to the next.
Jennifer?
That sounds good to me. I'm in agreement.
Okay, and Dave Evans, who's going to be watching this debate from Las Vegas and have a report tonight on Eyewitness News at 11. David, your final thoughts?
I agree with the other two. I think that what we're going to see is Mike Bloomberg will do okay in this debate. He's going to get beaten up probably pretty badly in the first 30 minutes or so. It's going to be 5 against 1. But I think eventually, throughout the rest of the debate, they're going to have to talk about something else besides his money. So I think he'll do okay, and I think he'll go on, and I think he'll do pretty well on March 3rd.
And 5-1, Americans like an underdog, and if he responds in a good way and not defensively, it could work to his advantage as well. I want to thank all of you for a really lively discussion. And Jennifer, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Eyewitness News Countdown for the first time. I hope we can have you back again. You were just great.
I'd like that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Hank Scheinkoff, Dave Evans as well. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for watching us on this special edition of the Countdown tonight. Make sure to tune back into Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock for a live report from Las Vegas by Dave Evans and complete coverage, of course, of tonight's debate. We're going to come back with more countdowns as this election unfolds right up until November of 2020. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at Channel 7 and ABC7NY.com, thanks for watching and good night.